All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. As always, today we're going to talk about all the Super Wildcard weekend matchups outside of Eagles-Bucks, which we'll talk about for the Monday morning show. But Drew, let's start off with Browns-Texans, the Coach of the Year Bowl, though that has already been voted on. And also, as a tangent, I think that award might be done. I think D'Amico Ryans, from everything I've heard and read, is going to win that and win it surprisingly comfortably. In any case, the Browns are 2.5-point favorites at the Texans. The total is 44.5. Game is on NBC and Peacock. What's your read on this one?
Sidebar on the Coach of the Year. Amazing that Ryan Tannehill and Mike Vrabel can team up one more time to get D'Amico Ryans Coach of the Year recognition, because if he's a wild card, I don't know if it's that big of a slam dunk, but it's just weird how that award works. The Browns news is notable. Their most important player potentially on defense outside of Myles Garrett is Denzel Ward, and he got injured in practice this week, which is absurd, but so be it. It's a knee injury. It's not especially trivial, and that matters because there's really only one threat on the Texans that scares you, and it's Nico Collins. And if all of a sudden Ward is unavailable to go, and right now he's questionable, that potentially matters a lot and could be impactful in this game. You've seen this total trickle up to 44.5 over the course of the week. I was on the other side of this. I think this should have been an underplay. However, the news about Ward has my confidence shaken significantly. Texans news, injury news does not look great as well. As you kind of clearly pointed out last time we talked, their defensive line limped across the finish line against the Colts. And in general, if you're not putting pressure on Flacco, he's going to be able to hurt you down the field. My entire take on this has been kind of spun on its head, where I thought this was going to be, Texans leaning under. But now I think this is Texans or pass. So tough for me to really kind of expect that this is going to be a shootout still. I know that, the Browns defense doesn't travel as well as, other elite defenses have in the past, at least if you look at the splits from this season. I know they haven't finished on an especially strong note, but a lot of that was attributable to not having Denzel Ward in a number of games down the stretch. And so they might be back there. So, I'm kind of spinning here just because I was shocked by the news and haven't really gotten a good sense of exactly how healthy and how effective some of the defenders are going to be for the Texans. If the Texans D-line is as bad as they were against the Colts, then this has Browns win in a shootout written all over it, which is what we saw last time these two teams played. But I guess I'll just hang my hat on the fact that when the Browns offense rolled into Houston last time, Houston looked like they had a game plan that was for a different team. They were not expecting a wide open passing attack from Flacco. And now that they've seen that once, I would guess that they're a little bit more prepared for that this time, and it's a little less effective. So Browns kicker also, starting kicker not expected to go. That could matter for a total here. So at long last, I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm not buying out of a total here. And I'm not selling the Texans just yet, but this is a very, very good line.
Yep. Sacrilegious to accuse the Coach of the Year, D'Amico Ryans, of not being prepared for the opponent coming into town with Mr. Flacco. But no, I agree. I don't know what happened in that matchup. I think the one thing that has actually changed a bit from then, that to the detriment of the Texans, even, and they got blown out in that game. In a game they lost by 14, but it wasn't that close. It was It was 20 plus, and then
garbage points for Texans, by the way.
Yes, garbage points galore for Davis Mills. But the one thing that the Texans were able to do on defense is the Browns couldn't run the ball at all. And I think that the Texans' run defense has gotten significantly worse since then, just through health. Jerry Hughes is going to miss. Will Anderson, he gutted it out on Saturday night against the Colts, but he had nothing. Like, he was able to, I think for the start of the game, he was able to get a little bit of push, but then by the end of the game, he was really limping around. He was hobbling off to the sideline. By the way, it's an awards tangent as well. I think Will Anderson is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, is my sense too. I think it's going to be 3 awards for the Texans. So quite crazy. But Anderson banged up, Jerry Hughes out. Jonathan Grenard looks like he's going to play. At least he said he's going to play. He's officially listed as questionable, but Malik Collins is banged up. And just I just can't buy the idea that the Colts, who were fine as a rushing attack all year, but they had Braden Smith go down in the game. And I just can't imagine that if the Texans, if those guys were right, that Jonathan Taylor would have been able to do that. So I'm kind of inferring that these guys are not healthy, and I'm not sure that the break will have helped them that much. I'm not sure Will Anderson's high ankle sprain is going to get better, and it's not like they have any extended rest for this because it is the Saturday game. So you add all that up, and I think that the Browns will be able to run the ball more than they did. I don't think Flacco is going to be able to throw as effectively, just given that it was an out of body experience for him and Amari Cooper. But I think they'll be able to run it better. It's Jerome Ford, his rushing prop is 43.5. I'm not sure if anyone watched Jonathan Taylor, but I don't think a lead running back for the team going up against the Texans after what we saw, and the Texans are favored in this game. The Browns are favored in this game. I'm not sure Ford can be set at 43.5. So that would be my best prop look in this one. Okay. Anything else on Texans Browns before we go on to Dolphins Chiefs?
I guess we said it when we talked about this last Sunday. I guess the best bet will probably be made in game once we have answers to a couple of these questions, because we're not really going to know the health and state of some of these Texans players until we put eyeballs on them. And I agree with your take that a Browns lead means Browns second half is a bet. And a Texans lead probably means that second half over is a bet. So that's kind of where my head is at in terms of potential live angles here.
Yep. Last thing on this one, seen a lot of chatter about how Joe Flacco is the experienced quarterback in this matchup, and CJ Stroud's a rookie in his first playoff game. Like, Houston have the massive quarterback advantage in this game. Like, it's not close. I'm sorry. Like, I know Flacco's had a great 5 weeks, like relative to expectation. He's also thrown 8 picks in 5 weeks and could have thrown a lot more. CJ Stroud is a significantly better quarterback than Joe Flacco. And as far as Stroud not playing in a playoff game, he has played in a playoff game. Last week was a playoff game for the Texans. Sure. It was in prime time. It was win or go home. That was a playoff game. Now it's going to be a much better defense that he's going up against. But I think that Stroud is more than ready for this based on what I saw against the Colts.
Yeah, just real quick on that point. Flacco with a significantly lower floor, right? CJ Stroud's floor is way high. Flacco could take the Browns out of this game, and it would not surprise me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still waiting for New York Jets and the Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles, Joe Flacco to surface at any point. Yeah. Okay, Dolphins, Chiefs. Chiefs are up to 4.5 point favorites now. The total is 44. Saturday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. The reason this line has trickled up for the Chiefs is, I think, largely because of the injury reports and the fact that the Dolphins don't have any edge rushers left. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Andrew Van Ginkel, all done. And they're signing Bruce Irvin, Justin Houston off the street. Justin Houston might be a starting edge rusher for this team. And by the way, their other guy was already Melvin Ingram, who was supposed to be like a 10 snaps per game situational edge rusher, who's now covering Dalton Kincaid on wheel routes. So they are a mess in terms of their health situation, at least at edge rusher. Do you think that tips the scales here to the Chiefs of the line?
Yeah, Xavier Howard out as well, Jerome Baker out as well. The Dolphins defense is an absolute shell of the unit that was grading well over the back half of the season. And that definitely does matter. I think they could make the Chiefs offense look good here. I laid the money line with the Chiefs earlier this week. I got -185, -190. I think -225, obviously there's been market support for Kansas City here. And I think it is just people digesting the injury impact. I will say that if this game was being played in a neutral situation on a neutral field, and with a full strength Dolphins team, this would be more like Dolphins slight favorites for me, or around to pick them. You put it in Arrowhead, you got to give the Chiefs a bump to 2.5. You consider the weather impacts and what that does in terms of how each team wants to attack and play this game. And I think you got to push that past 3. And then I think the injuries is really what takes us over the top, and which has driven us to 4.5. So I guess what I'm saying is I agree with kind of the market upgrading the Chiefs for this particular spot. I will note that the idea of Melvin Ingram defending Travis Kelce in this one gives me a good hearty laugh. Like there could be some funny moments in this contest. But I will say that if you put me my feet to the fire and you said, hey, make a case for the Dolphins, like, hasn't the market gone too far? Like, I think there is a case to be made, right? There's a second side to this coin, and that is the fact that the Chiefs' run defense is susceptible. And there's a lot of things that the Dolphins do well in the running attack that are independent of the person that they're handing the ball off to and the blockers in front of them. And so I think just scheme and attack that is available for Mike McDaniel in this contest is going to be good enough to keep them in the game. If they can play enough keep away here, maybe they can kind of hide their defensive injuries here. So, there's definitely a world where, we're in the third quarter of this one. The Chiefs have had 4 drives and the Dolphins have a lead, and everyone's scratching their heads like, how is this happening? When is Pat Mahomes going to show up? Like, that's definitely in the realm of possibility. But I think this is probably about as bad of a spot as you can ask for a playoff game that the Dolphins have found themselves in because of the injuries. And honestly, I'm not really counting on 100% Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in this one. We haven't even mentioned that. They're both going to be out there, but to the degree that they're going to be their game-changing, game-breaking selves, I have to see it to believe it. So, I think there's definitely a hard road ahead for the Dolphins to be competitive in this contest. I think the market may be, at its absolute apex in terms of how much we're willing to upgrade the Chiefs and downgrade the Dolphins.
Yep. I'll make the case for the Dolphins a little bit later, but for now, a couple things. One, Javon Holland, who keeps on getting listed on the injury report with his injury as knees, plural. He's got 2 sprained MCLs, but it seems like he's going to gut it out. Deshaun Elliott as well. It's a little bit of a concern that neither of those 2 guys practiced all week, but I do think, to your point, Waddle's going to play. Looks like most of it will be back. Tyreek is going to be, still, this limited version of Tyreek is still like the 5th best wide receiver in football, I would say. Sure. So they're in a pretty good spot there. And I think there are some reasons to like the Dolphins here, but I'll get into that a bit later. All right, before we get to Steelers Bills, don't forget to stream Dolphins Chiefs exclusively on Peacock. And for a limited time, get a 1-year subscription to our streaming service for $29.99. Sign up now at peacocktv.com/NFL. Terms apply. All right, Steelers Bills. The line is Bills -10. Total is plummeted to 35.5, 25-mile-per-hour winds in Buffalo. This game is Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. No TJ Watt in this one. What's your lean on Bills -10?
Expecting Minka Fitzpatrick back, though. Yep. That's positive. Okay, so file this next 2 minutes away in things that may age like spoiled milk, or just age like milk, I guess. I think that Steelers are alive. I think the Bills are wildly overrated by market right now, particularly on offense. And I think there's a chance that Mason Rudolph has turned a page, at least for whatever it's worth. We haven't seen a lot of Mason Rudolph with the current regime in terms of offensive coordinating, and he's playing better. Like, I've tried to poke holes in this. I've watched the film now a couple of times in his games against the Bengals and the Seahawks. And while those defenses are not defenses that we'll go into war with at all, Mason Rudolph was good. And I think ultimately the idea that he is able to cover a 10-point spread, I'm fine with that. The fact that this is a phenomenally low total and you're catching 10 points, wonderful. Sign me up. Like, I really don't in order for the Bills to cover here, I think that the Steelers are going to have to give them some short fields and some turnovers, and that's just not the way that they're playing football right now. The Bills, for what it's worth, you can attack them on the ground, off tackle. That's exactly the way the Steelers want to run the ball. That's the way they're most effective running the ball. And if they mix in some play action and they can complete anything downfield, even in this hellacious wind, I think you could see the Steelers being surprisingly plucky in this one. Now, not expecting them to get a win. I think financially I'm harmed by the Steelers upsetting the Bills in this one. So I kind of am, cheering for a 10-point middle here, I guess. But this is going to come down to red zone efficiency, I think, in terms of who gets the win. And I think people are a little bit too excited about a Bills team that has put things together down the stretch, but they've largely done it with, some defensive some defensive efficiency that may not necessarily be what matters in a game that has these types of conditions. So, for me, Pittsburgh is the side at 10, and no real opinion on the total. I think that's probably fine considering what we're expecting weather-wise.
Yeah, not a great injury report for the Bills that came out an hour ago as we're recording. Gabe Davis, back-to-back DMPs, likewise for Rasul Douglas, likewise for Taylor Rapp. I guess that doesn't matter a great deal, but still, they are probably going to be a little bit limited. Now, they'll trade that for the absence of TJ Watt, but I'm not sure what's going to happen in this game, Drew, but I do know it's minus 500. The Bills are going to play with their food, at least for a time. That's all I know, because I don't think they have layup playoff games. I mean, it's thinking back to the last time think back to last year and Skylar Thompson. If they didn't have all those delay of games in a game where the Bills are 2 touchdown favorites in that one, and Skylar Thompson is driving for the win at the death, then they get absolutely destroyed by Cincinnati the following week. So some concerns about the Bills. Just the talent mismatch is just so emphatic in this one. But that is counteracted a little bit by the conditions, by the low total. I do think if there is one quarterback in NFL history who is immune to 25-mile-per-hour winds, it is Josh Allen. Think back to that insane Patriots game a couple of years ago where Mac Jones threw 3 times in the entire game and Josh Allen's just dropping back like it's a September game in Miami. So I think that Allen will be fine with the conditions, but I'm a little bit worried as someone who has a lot of Bills futures positions, which have gone on an absolute odyssey this season from backing them at like 10-1 to win the Super Bowl after week 3, and now coming full circle where that's probably about slight value now, although nothing to call home about. But I am a bit worried about the Steelers running the ball and the fact the Bills have had a bad rushing defense this year, and the Steelers seem to have found something on the ground. But ultimately, you would expect that the Bills will have too much to advance. Maybe covering 10 will be a bit beyond them, though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's go to Packers Cowboys. Cowboys are 7-point favorites in this one. The total is a massive 50.5. The game is Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. It's the Cowboys futures holder. I'm a little nervous about this one. Another team in the Dallas Cowboys that is obsessed with playing with its food, and a little bit concerned about their defense. Don't like that Stephon Gilmore is going to be in a harness, which never sounds good for a human being, but that's what he'll be doing to gut through this one. And before I ask you for your breakdown, the thing that leapt out the most to me is looking at some of the props for this week. Jordan Love is set at 248.5 passing yards. That is staggeringly low to me. I would have expected this would be 25 yards higher. He's gone over this number 7 of the past 9. And a lot of those, he wasn't a touchdown underdog in a playoff game in effectively a dome. So I don't know what is going on with that number, but that would be my best bet here. What's your breakdown of this game?
As a Dallas Cowboys future holder as well, it's going to financially harm me to see the Packers win, but I think the Packers are alive. I don't see a huge margin of difference between these two teams. They're very similar in a lot of regards. And I think the kind of the key strength on the defensive side for the Cowboys with their pass rush is neutralized with a healthy and extremely effective offensive line for the Packers. This is going to be a track meet. I think the total tells you that. I think the expectation that both of these teams could make their team totals, I think, is fair. And I think ultimately this comes down to end of game decision making and coaching. And honestly, for me, that tilts in favor of Matt LaFleur, not Mike McCarthy. So it's been pretty broadly kind of talked about, and I don't think it's shocking, and it definitely has been incorporated into the line that the Cowboys do destructive damage over the middle portion of the field in the passing game, and the Packers are miserable in terms of defending that. But that said, the Cowboys are a little bit one-dimensional. They're not getting much going on the ground, and if you can't push the can't push the Packers around with a lead here, then all of a sudden you're going to have maybe the hand in ball in the hand of Jordan Love with the chance to either backdoor this spread or tie the game or even win. So this is a game that's, I think, going to be decided in the balance slate. I don't see either of these teams really running away and hiding. And I think there's definitely scope for the Packers finding a little bit of success early and being able to kind of put the Cowboys on their heels and play from ahead, which would be just an incredibly beneficial game state for them. I think the Packers have the better running attack here. I think they're just better balanced in general in terms of pass run. I think you're talking about equally strong scheme on offense between these two teams. McCarthy probably does not get enough credit for how incredible his play calling has been, and his scheme is his play development has been this year. But that said, I think both of these defenses are pretty fraudulent in the wrong ways, for their opponents. So I think this one's going to be pretty high scoring. I took the 7.5 points with the Packers. Market finally came with me to 7 today. Not exactly sure why, but I appreciate it. And I think ultimately this is going to be a Packers cover and a competitive game, and maybe even a Packers win.
Yeah, I think one of the great myths in the NFL this season has been the Dallas defense, where clearly they're a good unit, but the idea that they're a dominant unit, I think, has kind of been washed away. I still have stuck in my head terrifying memories of Jared Goff marching down the field towards the end of that game, of Geno Smith having the best game of his entire career against the Cowboys on the road, just completely lighting up Deron Bland. And I think this Cowboys defense, one, not amazing against the run at all. Saw what Buffalo did to them, just eviscerating them on the ground. And then two, so much of this defense is just anchored on Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence getting home. Because if they're not, then it's huge trouble, because Bland is, he's very good overall, clearly, but he can absolutely be taken advantage of. And then Stephon Gilmore, who has kind of progressively slipped, I think, over the course of the season, which makes sense given where he's at. The fact that he is going to be in that aforementioned harness, I don't think bodes well. And also the other thing, too, is that Jordan Lewis is one of the worst slot corners in the league. He just gets annihilated over and over again. The Packers who have in the slot, Jaden Reed, mini Debo Samuel. So I don't think that bodes super well either. I think the Packers will be able to run the ball too. So I think the move from 7.5 to 7 makes sense. And yeah, if forced, I would be leaning Packers here at the number, though I very much hope I'm wrong on that one. Okay, Rams, Lions. Lions are 3-point favorites. This is the Sunday night football game on NBC and Peacock. Total is 51.5. What do you make of this one?
Game of the week, Jay.
Gosh,
I cannot
Good
wait
week
for
for
this
NBC.
Cannot wait for this one. Big week for NBC. Best game in the night slot on Sunday. Well done, team. Everybody who got this in the right spot, thank you. I think this is going to be a super competitive game. I think the Rams ought to be inside of 3. They may close inside of 3. We'll see. I really don't see any obvious crazy advantages for the Lions offense against the Rams defense. I think the Rams defense has been kind of weakly underrated for whatever it's worth, and they haven't played a lot of elite quarterbacks. And so, yeah, I get it. They really haven't been tested. But I do think that Aaron Donald can cause some disruption in the inside, get a little bit of, pressure on Jared Goff. Jared Goff does not perform well under pressure, particularly when it comes inside. So Aaron Donald is the key here for the Rams defense, in my opinion. And then for the Lions defense, they've been able to get it going on with pass rush lately. And they are getting CJ GJ back at long last. And he could help kind of bolster that secondary. And I think kind of the key angle here for me in the entire game, and this is maybe I'm too reductive, maybe this is too simplistic, but the Lions are absolutely elite in the red zone. And so much of that, in my opinion, comes down to the way they utilize Sam Laporta. And Sam Laporta, I'm not expecting to go. And I think that ultimately makes this an underplay. 51.5 is a huge, huge number for a game where both of these teams are going to be successful on the ground. That could shorten the game. The Rams special teams is a disaster. I don't know that they're attempting a 40-plus yard field goal in this game. I don't know that they're making a field goal in this game. They may not make extra points in this game with Brett Maher out there. So, I think there are a lot of small factors here that just tell me this is going to be a closely contested game, and expecting both teams to kind of flirt with 24 points. I don't think it's going to happen, particularly if there's any slippage in red zone efficiency for the Lions. Lions in general, we know are going to be aggressive. They're going to go for it on fourth down a lot in opponent territory. And in that regard, a couple of stops is going to take points off the board here. So I think the Lions are kind of secretly an under team right now. And I think the Rams kind of have an ability with a lead to shorten the game. The Lions with the lead can shorten the game. So, there's a lot of factors here that tell me this total should be on the low side of 50. So under 51.5, my favorite total of the week.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think with the Lions, there's this idea that the defense is just a complete catastrophe. I think people have in their minds the Thanksgiving game where Jordan Love did absolutely whatever he wanted, even like the Saints game where the Saints kind of came back at will on the
Sure.
Lions. But I think this defense is now, with the emergence of Melifonwu, who's been fantastic at safety, with Brian Branch kind of doing a Devin Witherspoon impression, just zooming all over the field. And the fact that Aiden Hutchinson is like a legitimate superstar now, and they've got Alan McNeil back. Now all of a sudden it's a semi kind of real defense. And going up against the Rams team that is not a great defense, but looked like it was going to be potentially a bottom 5, bottom 6 unit in the NFL. And now all of a sudden is like flirting with just mere slightly below averageness, and they are fine against the run. And I think that's the big thing with Detroit, that this game is probably going to be on Jared Goff's shoulders and his arm. And I don't trust Jared Goff. There is something, I'm not sure what it is with Goff, but it seems like in the second half of the season, we've spoken about this before, the ball is just coming out of his hand really weirdly. And it's just like he's just flubbing multiple passes a game, where it's like it just doesn't come out. It looks like me throwing kind of once every 20 dropbacks. So I don't know what's going on there. I have a lot of faith that Stafford, even with the Lions defense being a bit better, that Stafford should be able to move the ball through the air. So yeah, I would lean Rams +3 here as well. Okay. Let's jump straight into our best bets now. Drew, what have you got?
Give me the Packers, favorite side of the week. I think this should be inside of 7. So even though it has moved from 7.5 to 7, I think Packers +7 is still a fair play. And really, give me the better rushing attack. Give me the better coach. And I don't think that there is a huge margin right now between Dak Prescott and Jordan Love. As insane as that sounds, there is a built-in expectation that Jordan Love is going to choke in his first ever playoff start, and we're just not seeing that very much anymore. So I would not count on it, and I think you're catching a little bit of a win probability, putting that in pocket just on that expectation, which is unrealistic, and this is going to be a competitive game. So go Pack, go.
Okay, my best bet, and I say this with apprehension, it's the last time I gave out the Miami Dolphins as the best bet. They literally lost 56-19, and I needed, instead of Dolphins +3.5 against the Ravens, I needed +37.5. But I'm going back to the well one last time with this despicable team that doesn't show up in every single big game they play. But give me the Dolphins +4.5, and the reason why is simple: is that in this weather, and it's going to be, it's going to be cold and there's going to be wind in Kansas City. So what I'm leaning on here is that the Chiefs have, across the whole season, the 5th worst rushing defense in the NFL. And we focus so much on the Dolphins as being this explosive downfield passing attack with Waddle and Tyreek and what they did to the Ravens back in week 1 last year. But I think what really makes this team special at the moment on offense, with kind of how limited those receivers are, is that they are an elite rushing offense. I think that Achane, it looks like most that they're going to be back. The Dolphins had success on the ground when they played Kansas City the first time. That game in Frankfurt, someone who really needed the Chiefs to win that game for a variety of reasons, did not feel like I was on the better team in that game. And I felt like the Dolphins very easily could have taken care of business there. Now, they're not the same in terms of personnel, but this Chiefs team, I'm not sure is better than at that point either. So I think the Dolphins will be able to run the ball. The Chiefs, I'm not convinced they're going to be able to run the ball on Miami. And as much as the Dolphins defense is banged up, they still have plenty of decent personnel on that team. They still have Jalen Ramsey and Javon Holland, who's been close to the best safety in football this year, Deshaun Elliott and co. So I think that for a Kansas City offense that, again, hasn't really looked right in 3 months, I think that the Dolphins will be able to control the clock. I think they'll be able to run the ball. I think if you're looking for like a same game parlay story of this game, it's Dolphins rushing over, total under, Dolphins +4.5. So I think people have perhaps written this team off a little prematurely. So I look forward to the Chiefs winning 50-12. But I'm taking Dolphins +4.5. One last time.
I like your breakdown. I will note that if this was at that big of a slam dunk for the Chiefs, it wouldn't have stopped at 4.5.
Yes.
Right? Like they pretty surely someone in market put the doorstop in that number at 4.5. And it's not that different than 3.5. So even though this looks like the steamy side midweek, I don't really get that sense. And this could very well boil down to, end of game, just, somebody making the right play at the end of the game, kicking a field goal. Like I could very well see this being a closely contested contest.
Yeah, and I do buy into the idea that Mahomes in the playoffs does have an extra gear in terms of them perhaps ramping up pass plays, Mahomes scrambling more, and just Mahomes just playing better on the occasion. But at the same time, like if this particular offense had another gear, I think we would have seen it by now. Like they just haven't had another gear all season. And yes, it's a problem that Xavier Howard's out and the edge rushers are out, but like the receivers still have to get separation, and they haven't been able to do that all season. Kelsey doesn't look like himself. It's really Rashee Rice, and you'd expect that Jalen Ramsey gets the assignment there. So give me the Dolphins plus 4.5. I don't feel good about this, but I have to. It is the one that I believe in most, for better or worse. All right. We're going to break down Eagles Bucks on the Monday show, so check that out. But for now, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, good luck this weekend.